The chief scientific advisor before the briefing from Boris Johnson had told a parliamentary committee that around 20,000 deaths would be good across the UK. It's about 8,000 for the seasonal flu, so it's a pretty grim prediction if 20,000 deaths is a good outcome. Then, of course, we heard from Boris Johnson. He'll be holding a daily press conference at number 10 Downing Street. Now, a huge package for businesses was announced there, £300 billion of government-backed loans for businesses across the UK that will undoubtedly really struggle. The community here has been asked to work from home if they can, not to go to pubs, not to go to restaurants, not to go to the theatre. Cinemas have shut down. So the economic effect of that will be quite dire. Boris Johnson says this is now a wartime government, and you'll see wartime type of response from this government. Let's hear from him.
This is a disease that is so dangerous and so infectious that without drastic measures to check its progress, it would overwhelm any health system in the world. And the problem is not with the health systems, it's the numbers of sufferers.
Well, Boris Johnson says he's been following the scientific advice from the experts, and he is then acting on that advice. So originally, I think people were criticising the government here that they weren't acting quickly enough, that they weren't doing enough. They did ban large gatherings, for instance, but above and beyond that, there wasn't a lot of action that was going on. Then yesterday, of course, we saw a real step up in approach there. Now we're in the UK in this suppression phase, and presumably the scientists have now said you need to actually take more actions to suppress this. Now, one of the suppressions, of course, is making over 70-year-olds stay at home, stay isolated for 3 months. That is how they think they can keep that death toll down. One of the predictions here for the death toll was as high as 250,000. The scientists are now saying to keep that figure down to around that 20,000 mark, which we mentioned before, that these suppression measures need to be taken. But there's still some criticism of Boris Johnson. Schools, for instance, are still open across the UK, and people think that restaurants and bars, etc., should be shut altogether. Now, that could still come, of course, but Boris Johnson says he's doing what the scientists are telling him, but he did say the buck ultimately does stop with him. Italy just keeps on getting worse. You'd hope it would get better, but the death toll rose in the past 24 hours by 16%. So the death toll there has soared now above 2,500. Of course, in France, we've now seen that shutdown kick into force. That is, people will have to remain in their homes unless it's for essential movement, that is to get groceries, walk the dog, but anything other than that, they will be slapped with a €38 fine, and that could go up to around €130 across this 15-day period. And that, again, that word war, we heard the French President Emmanuel Macron addressing the nation last night saying this is a war, it's a health war, and then again today the same word used there by Boris Johnson, that this is a wartime government. So pretty strong language coming from both those leaders.